Record. So official. Okay, lovely ladies. Welcome to our little impromptu masterclass today. Um, we are going to be chatting about all things how I've really worked on, well, changing my body shape this month as a busy mom. And I really want to cover four key aspects that are like non-exercise related that so often get pushed to the side or get overshadowed by just people only looking at movement or only looking at nutrition, whereas nutrition's included in this, but these four elements play a huge role in both managing our stress, balancing our hormones, and helping to decrease like inflammation in our body too. And so that's what we're really going to chat about today. And you guys know that I'm not really about like presentation style, so obviously I'm just going to be talking. So feel free to butt in at any stage. So let's get into it. The reason why I wanted to share this is because number one, we're not all perfect. Yes, I'm a PT, Pilates instructor, all the things, but we're all human. And even if we have a healthy lifestyle, it's a really important reminder that our habits are important. But as soon as we sort of miss one day, if we then continue to miss consecutive days, that's when we tend to find that it's harder to keep that habit in our life. And the longer that we miss that habit, the more it's not going to be a part of our daily life, if that makes sense. So the big thing that I really want to go over is that the thing for me that really kickstarted us feeling like we needed a mini health kick or mini reset to really hone in on a few of the lifestyle elements was I was just feeling a little bit uncomfortable in myself because I feel like it was a really busy end to last year. I was probably doing a little bit too much, and stress levels were a little bit higher than where they should be, which definitely caused a bit of an overflow in my body in terms of when our stress levels are high, this can really cause some hormonal imbalance because when we are in a stressed state, our body goes into what we call fight or flight mode. When we go into fight or flight mode, our body produces adrenaline and it produces cortisol. So back in the caveman day, if they literally needed to run for their life, they could. And that was the purpose of why our body needs fight and flight. In the modern era and world and modern motherhood, trying to do all the things, it's quite common and easy for us to be in a constant state of stress or anxiety and not be aware of the signs and symptoms of stress because we're sort of always in it. And that's probably going to be my biggest lesson for today, is really looking at how stress, sleep, nutrition, and also like from the emotional capacity of looking at communication, boundaries, and those sorts of things play a really key role in you as a mom starting to take care of yourself, prioritizing your health and fitness, and either rejigging and reintroducing those habits back into your life, or just tweaking those ones that you feel have sort of slipped, sort of like where we were at. And the big things, in case anyone else can relate to this, is that I think for me, obviously the puffiness, a little bit of weight gain and things like that were definitely from stress, hormones, and that inflammation side of things. But it was also from when you have kids of all different ages, and both of you do, is that obviously things, you get into a bit of a pattern with things, like things will be going okay for a bit and then some sort of developmental thing will happen or something will change or a kid will get sick or something's going on that sort of throws your usual routines out of whack. And so for us, we threw like George's dummies away at Christmas, and then he started toilet training. And so the nighttime routine that once was a smooth process, putting the beloved child in bed and him just going straight to sleep, he wasn't always like this, but for like I must have got into like a little bit of a comfort zone for a while with him being quite cruisy at night, was not once what it was. And so then I was finding bedtime was getting stretched out significantly, and that I hadn't eaten, and it was getting to, I don't know, whatever o'clock, because obviously I'm a nana, but it was getting late and I was starving. And so when you're starving, you don't eat the food you should. Well, it depends if it's cooked or not. You go for something that's quick and easy. And so that was happening regularly because the nighttime routine was irregular. And so that was definitely something that had crept in. So by not fueling my body with good quality foods, therefore I was going for those things. By either not having things prepared, you couldn't just grab it out and heat it and eat it before you even considered those other things as well. So that was a really big key thing that had crept in. And probably just due to sheer busyness, the lack of, like, around Christmas and New Year and things like that, the planning and prepping and things like that probably fell a bit out of whack, or the mid-week meal prep. So there were a few big things. Staying up late sometimes doing work and those sorts of things, not prioritizing a good wind down before bed, or scrolling too much on my phone. And then in terms of from a stress perspective, I think because I was probably staying up late, I was having that extra coffee. It was keeping me in this little bit of, like, not really anxious, but slightly in this stressy state, rather than in my usual, like, aware of those signs and symptoms, and actually using breathing and wind down techniques to actually help navigate those symptoms. So that's what we're going to cover. Let's dive on in. And I think the big reason why I decided to share that we were actually doing this was, I think the first reason was a lot of accountability to keep doing it. And so if you feel that, you are not alone. We're only human. Like, it's all good and well to do something once, but you've got to then keep showing up to do it to actually see results and change. And that was also part of the other reason why I said to my husband, just casually sitting on the couch one night, and I was like, I think, actually, no, it would have been during the day. I think I really need to do this. And he was like, I've actually been thinking the same. And I was like, oh, yeah, we're both feeling a little bit like we need to tweak things and just reset everything. So we did, and we literally started the next day. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like, when you decide that things are not okay, you've articulated it, and it's like, let's go. Because if we wait until Monday, or if we wait another day, who knows? That thought process might just feel too hard in a couple of days' time. So we've got to act on it while we feel good. And the other reason I wanted to share is that I know so often I do talk a lot about, not having quick fixes and things like that. But after working in the industry for over a decade, I completely understand that you want to see shifts in your energy, in your emotions, in your body within a period of time, so that you do actually genuinely feel motivated to keep showing up and doing those things. Because if you go months on end showing up for yourself, planning, prepping, moving your body, adding in these routines, and nothing changes, you don't really have that, well, like, we call it like a reward system, right? It's sort of like you don't have the rewards or the benefits, and therefore the desire to actually keep going. And so we haven't done like anything ridiculous throughout this process. It has really been refining those lifestyle elements and reprioritizing things again. And by doing that, you can see significant changes in a short period of time, and then work on like the maintenance side of things from there. So let's dive on in. I would love to break down the process that we went through, and then some of the changes and things that we've been working on. So the first one realistically is when you decide that it's time for you to work on you, or that you need to reprioritize you, your health, your fitness, and integrate some things for you again, you need to tell your husband, wife, partner, family and make it known. And that might feel a little bit weird, it might feel a little bit confronting. But by doing this, everyone in the household like sort of knows that it's a priority now or whatever the thing may be. But then it's also figuring out as a family dynamic what needs to shift, what needs to change. And you'll know that like I'm a really big believer in that planning our weeks out to some extent and planning certain things in our life actually gives us a little bit more room for freedom, a little bit more room for fluidity. If we actually know what's happening, it gives us back the power of where we have white space and time in our day-to-day life as a busy mum. Because if you say you're going to exercise on XYZ days per week, so say you're going to exercise on Wednesday and Thursday, but you've got kids sport in the morning and at night, you're working during the day, just for example, like, is that a practical day for you to commit to go to the gym or do something, right? So by actually having a good overview of what's happening in our life and then communicating with your family about what your short and long-term goals are, it means that then if you say to your loved one, okay, I need to get up in the morning and have 10 minutes to myself to do X before the kids get up, or can you deal with the kids whilst I do this? It feels hard to ask for the help, or sometimes it may feel selfish, but I really want to work through the initial like mum guilt that comes up with telling people what you need. Like, I don't feel like it was something that I ever witnessed growing up. Like, I feel like our parents' era were really, really, the women of the world were really taught to put their needs and wants and health and all those things on the back burner, and that it was about serving their family and their kids. And that this generation really is working hard to normalize taking care of ourselves and prioritizing our health and wellness, because we now know how absolutely important it is. But we do 100% need to communicate and talk to our loved ones about what we actually want and need and how important it is. And for example, like, is it might not be to do with exercise and fitting exercise in. It might be to do with food. It might be to do with, like, for example, like, I do most of our cooking, but it might be like, cool, well, when are we going to do the meal prepping and how does that fit into our life? And is someone watching the child whilst I do the meal prep? Or if it's during that time, but that's when I usually go to the gym, do I need to shift the gym to do that at another time? Knowing that that's probably going to take away from something else, but that's okay, because that's something that's important for me to feel really good energetically and about myself and working towards my goals, but also is either some of the meal prep from all of our family's health perspective. So that's why that's really important. And like, I would love to know, like, if either of you feel like you want to pop anything in the chat, like, what do you feel like the hardest thing is to communicate to your loved ones about what you need in terms of your health, wellness, fitness? Like, is that something that you guys speak about often? Like, we're both trainers, so we do have this as like a high priority within our family unit, but I know that's different for everybody. And so, yeah, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? Like, do you feel like that's something difficult to discuss? You can let me know if you want. You don't have to. It's up to you. Yeah. Do you know what? It is 100. Yeah, it is. It is 100%. Like, I think as mums, we know, and we sometimes, like Dominic said, like, have the discussion, but then the implementation. And that is literally probably the number one reason why most mums don't do the things that they want to, is because it's either taking that first step, oh my God, taking that first step and doing the implementation. And then when roadblocks come up in motherhood, which literally happen daily, it's then navigating how we keep those things going even throughout the challenges of daily motherhood. And how can we like shift our mindset to be like, oh, well, I'm just going to use this as an example. Obviously, you don't need to run, but like, as in, I didn't get to go for my run today, kids home from school, whatever. But that's fine. I can't go for a run, but I can do something at home. And it's like being okay with having like a bit of a backup plan and adjusting and shifting what we sort of, I guess, visualize as like a normal. And this is something that I had a conversation with a mum this week, was that it's taken her quite a while to be okay with the fact that um, she can't go necessarily to a bar, Pilates, studio class for an hour 3 times a week anymore. She was like, I would be lucky to go once. But she was like, I've been letting that stop me from doing anything, if that makes sense. Because she's like, she had in her head that's what she used to do before kids. So that's what she should be doing now. And she was like, I just don't feel like doing 10 or 15 minutes of something at home is enough. And I'm like, things are so different as a mum. Like your entire body is completely different. It's literally carried children and given birth to children and nourished children. And your hormones are different now, and our bodies need different things as we get older. And say, for example, if you did 10 or 15 minutes, 7 days of 5 days of the week, but consecutively, that all compounds rather than going to do a class once a fortnight, for example. And so often shifting what we once knew as normal for exercise is like a really big first step. And then figuring out, once we've had those conversations, what do we need to do to implement and keep showing up consistently, if that makes sense. And sorry, you said I feel silly that I can't always stick to it. Like, I don't think that you're alone there. I think that there's definitely going to be something that needs to be worked on, like underneath, whether it's like that you need to have that accountability, sort of like we were talking about, to build the like building blocks and the foundations, and then figuring out what was it before that caused the like falling off of the routine and the habits. I usually find that for most moms, it's the Christmas, it's the school holidays, and then it might be like consistent for the term, but then it's another school holidays. And this is just in one example, but it's really figuring out what was it that either caused us to fall off the first time, so that we can actually then work on that and be aware of it. And then also put a plan and a few strategies into place, so that, say, for the school holidays that are coming up, that, okay, cool, well, I'm still going to have to work and have kids and do life. When am I ever going to do anything for me, for example? And so it might be shifting our expectations during those times of what we can and can't do. It might be including the kids in doing more of those things with us. So a few of my beautiful clients now have started to do things like family bike rides, or like when they are going to the park or something like that, they're like have the playground there, but they're choosing a park where there's maybe like a big oval and taking cricket sets, or going to play tennis as a family, and actually involving the kids more in those things as well, and you guys participating, and it not just being about the kids. And then one of my other mum clients, she said that her kids have actually loved doing some small like at-home classes with her. She was like, they don't stay attentive the whole time, they never do the whole thing, but she was like, I think they think that it's fun, and you know, they're doing something exciting and they're all doing it together. So I think during those times, say for example, if it is the school holidays that has possibly been the thing that hasn't allowed you to stick to it, that it's acknowledging whatever that thing was, and then coming up with some strategies and shifting the expectations during that time to still have some level of consistency, but maybe not to the extent that it usually is, just as an example. And so, yeah, I think that they're two really like incredible points. And I don't think that either of you are alone there. That is for sure. So yes, communication is key, everybody. And I think also like the other thing is as well is, like, for example, like I've really noticed that if you have that beautiful like community network of either people who are living their lives the same way or have the same values, or just being surrounded by people who already are doing the things that you want to be doing, can really, really help, because those people don't see it as being selfish or guilty or anything outside of normal, if that makes sense. So having that support network of people who get that movement and eating healthy and living a healthy life actually allows you to enjoy motherhood and feel really good is really important. So definitely keep that in mind. I'll keep moving through so I, don't hold you guys up all day. So the second component of the lifestyle elements that we really, really prioritized on for this was, actually, I'll leave that one to the end, but we've got 4. The next one I'm going to touch on is stress, and the next 2 are stress and sleep. And then I'll touch on nutrition last. So in terms of prioritizing sleep, and it's such a hard one to talk to mums about because guess what? There's so much that comes into it. And there are always going to be times when so much of it's out of your control. So I'm never going to tell mums to, get more sleep or get X amount of sleep, because that's just not the reality for so many people, unless your kids are of a certain age and they're just cruisy schmoozy. But, so often that's not the case. But the big thing that I really want to work with mums to do is winding down and reducing our stress levels before bed. So these 2 elements and these 2 lifestyle factors are quite intertwined because, well, sleep, stress, and winding down and being aware of your stress triggers are all very intertwined. So things that we can know when we're stressed are like, for example, if you get woken up by the kids during the night or in the morning and, that screaming, crying, piercing when you're sort of asleep, and it throws you up in bed, and it literally throws you into a state of panic. Like there's something that ticks inside of you that goes, oh my God, something's really wrong. And you literally sprint or get there as fast as you can. Usually I'm like crawling out of bed trying not to wake my husband up. And unless you physically start to take some deep breaths and lower your heart rate, so often you may come back to bed, or if you guys are then up for the day, stay in this slightly like panicked, elevated state. And I know that you know what I mean, because we've all sort of been there. And you might be going through your morning after that. So say you've got a 4:30 a.m. wake up and you're thrown into a panic, and then you just get on with your day after that. If you do not slow down for a minute once said child has calmed down, obviously, but you calming yourself down is ultimately also going to help them, because energetically they will feel your calmness. But it's actually also going to help you to reduce your stress levels, reduce your adrenaline, reduce your cortisol. And a really big reason for so much hormonal imbalance, weight gain around our stomach, puffiness in our body is like holding on to weight in our face and just feeling like, very like puffy and inflamed, and like you're sort of holding this extra layer of fat over your body, basically. A lot of the time has to do with those imbalanced hormones, which generally is a flow over effect of sleep deprivation as a mom, which is so out of your control. But then that really starts to tweak and mess with our hormones. But there are things that we can do to support our hormones. And that's what I really want to talk about. So that's one way that our body can sort of get thrown into this stress state. Another way is, when things happen throughout your day, if you feel like your heart rate is quite elevated, if you ever feel tightness in your chest or out of breath doing something, unless you're being active and exercising, you really need to try and catch those symptoms when they happen and nip them in the butt. And that will really help to keep those cortisol levels under control. But one of the first and best ways that I start with people to do it, and it's exactly what I did with myself, was making sure that I wasn't just lying watching Netflix until I needed to go to bed, is that I was actually actively either switching it off, switching my laptop off, which takes a lot of self-control for me if I'm trying to do stuff at night, and actually giving myself time to wind down. And even if you're doing it that once a day to start off with, and then we work back from there to take that to other components of the day, that is one really big thing that can do to start to rebalance those hormones and de-stress, depuff, de-inflame the body. Not even a word, making things up here, but that's okay. Um, and so winding down before we go to bed doesn't need to be ridiculous. It's like dimming the lights so that they're not completely bright. It might be having a warm shower, bath, something that's going to warm your body is always a really great way to actually calm you down. Simple things like essential oils, having a warm tea, reading a book, doing some stretches, journaling, meditating, or simply breathing, like doing one of those things before you go to sleep literally can reduce your cortisol levels by like 50% instantly. And that is why I really recommend doing something before you go to bed to calm down and wind down. If you've been doing something for a while, and legs up the wall is like the best ever. My beautiful friend who's a yogi, like, loves that, taught me that, love it. And so, yes, what was I saying? So, yes, literally choosing one thing before bed to wind down and relax you is great. If you've been doing something for a while and it doesn't feel like it's still having the same effect, it might be a good idea to either what we can call like habit stack that with one other thing. Like it might be like if you read, you might read 10 pages or I don't know, a chapter. I don't know how long you're reading for, but like you might read a chapter and then you might close your book rather than reading more. And then it might be simply then turning the lights off, or like if they were dimmed, completely turning them off, and then spending a couple of minutes doing some deep diaphragmatic breathing. 10 deep diaphragmatic breaths is one of the best ways that we can reduce our adrenaline, cortisol, all of those things, and bring us just back into a more present state. And so that's just what I started doing to really help me. And then that one process, I was able to then reintroduce back in picking up those signs and symptoms during the day of when I was stressed, making sure that I was doing a couple things in my morning. Like literally some days it might have just been putting on the essential oils. It might have just been doing 10 deep breaths, but at least doing one thing in the morning and at night to make sure that I was starting and finishing my day in a really de-stressed state. And that had a huge impact, not only on my energy levels, but how I know that this has been for you before, Sarah, but like it actually really helped me from like how I was reacting, like and how frustrated I was getting a few times with George, especially at night time. Sometimes when I like what had worked wasn't working anymore, and you get frustrated because you're tested and you're trying to figure out what's going on. And I was like, it was one of the best things to just remember to sort of step back and do those. And so that not only helped the quality of my sleep, but it also helped my stress. And so there are a couple of things that I would highly recommend doing to help with both of those things. Some people live and breathe by having magnesium before bed. I do love that. It puts me into a pretty deep sleep. So I want to make sure that nothing is happening in the household with sickness and stuff. Otherwise, you might feel like a zombie trying to get out of bed. And then the last one I want to talk about today is nutrition. And this was probably the biggest element of everything that we focused on, but it all came together to really change everything for us. So generally, because I do most of the cooking, if I can't be bothered cooking, then we will generally buy something. So, you know, we were having fun food every now and then. Fun food doesn't usually make me feel great, but can't be bothered, Tammy also didn't feel like cooking. So anyway, basically, long story short, I knew from the puffiness, I knew from the way when I was sitting down, like that I was holding so much around my waist and my tummy that I was like, no, 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 I can't sit down and hold my breath. Like this is not an okay to way for people to do. Like you need to be able to breathe and wear your clothes and feel comfortable. So I knew that we really needed to refine and look at getting back to those basics of planning, prepping, but also really like cooking 90 to 95% of our food at home again. And that simple thing and that simple shift of being like, okay, we're committing to this, we're working on our health, both of us, our whole family sort of unit actually really helped, to be honest, from an accountability perspective, but also then from like an expectation perspective. No one was asking for, I'm calling it fun food, but you guys know what I mean, right? It's always fun when you're not cooking. So we really sort of shifted and flicked back to what we do usually do. But if, for example, I ran out of meal preps in the middle of the week, or we were sort of running low on some carbs, protein, or salads in the fridge, it was just that prioritization of being like, okay, maybe it's that I grab a couple of, there's like these boneless chickens that you can get from Aldi, and they're like a boneless chicken. There's a mango one. Guess what? It's like not the best thing in the, well, actually, do you know what? It's not actually that bad. But anyway, guess what? I can put that in the air fryer for 25 minutes and it's cooked. And then you can have some other really easy salads with it. And the best, simplest shift that we started with was, it might not always be making a salad from scratch. You might have a crunchy coleslaw salad that you have it with. But guess what? You're having some good carbohydrates, good fats and protein, rather than having takeaway. So that was a really big shift for us. So we've been cooking 99, actually probably more at home, to be honest. We've only really eaten out once or twice in the last few weeks. We've still had like a few like yogurt ice blocks. Usually I would make my own, but we've had like a few of those. What else have we had? Yeah, and do you know what? To be honest, like the pre-cut salad packs have been like the best thing for me. Like one day I just sat down and ate a lot of that because I was like, all I want to eat is, I haven't eaten enough. And the biggest thing with having more meals prepped and having, even if they weren't like put in the microwave or put heat and eat, even if I had protein cooked in the fridge, it meant that I was literally set up for success no matter what. It meant that I could put it in a wrap. It meant that I could put it in a salad. It meant that I had roast veggies in the fridge too, or quinoa or whatever was going on for that day, that I could literally throw it together. And having those more balanced meals helped me so much with get over my sugar craving. So for the first couple of weeks, I kept some dark chocolate in the fridge. I read somewhere they were like 95%, and I was like, well, there's no point in eating bloody bitter, is there? So I think I had like 70% chocolate, and that actually really helped. I think I was having some like every day. And by like 2 and a bit weeks in, I didn't really crave it as much. Isn't that weird? It was like a good bad thing. But that actually really helped with my sugar cravings, just literally eating my meals. I haven't really been snacking, but having good balanced breakfast, lunch, and dinner has helped my sugar cravings. It's helped my energy levels, less coffee, more water, and all the things. And so if you're feeling a little bit flat, puffy, inflamed, need to sort of rejiggle the things, they have been the biggest changes in our, like, that we've made and have worked so well. And they're simple things that we can sort of just shift and prioritize in our daily life and all weeks, to sort of get things and get the wheels in motion again. So that's mainly what we're going to, that's mainly what I wanted to share with everyone, because I think so often as a trainer, it can be like, oh, you need to do X amount of exercise to get whatever results. And it's like, well, actually, I've probably done less over the last 3 or 4 weeks than I usually would do. So I just want to share that these things can have such a huge impact in your life, and to not underrate them. If you feel like you really need to get the wheels in motion with your health, wellness, and fitness, have the conversation, communicate, set some goals, and take that first step while you're feeling motivated. If you let that motivation pass, then we need to sort of get everything happening whilst you're feeling good to go. So that is all from me for today. I do have some more 20-minute meals. I'll send you guys the ebook. I'll send it to you on Instagram. Yay. And then if you need some love and support, you are more than welcome to ever join us inside the membership. And then we also have our next round, what's the date today, of our lifestyle reset starting on the 8th in a couple of weeks. So yeah, thanks so much for coming. And thanks for joining in the chat.
Thanks, Tammy.
Thanks so much. Thanks for listening to my little TED talk.
No, that was good.